Listen to this, Sharon. A letter to Ann Landers. It says, Dear Ann, I have never been married before. 2 months ago, I met this gorgeous woman, and I mean gorgeous. We've set our wedding date for 6 weeks from today. My problem is this. I have bad teeth. I plan to have them extracted and get false teeth, but that would take 8 weeks. Should we postpone the wedding? I'd say they better not pull his wisdom teeth. He's going to need all the smarts he can get.
I think you're right.
Boy, what a long day. I think I'm going to brush my wisdom teeth and turn in.
Hey, Ron, would you have postponed marrying this gorgeous woman?
Not a chance.
Thank you, teachers and fellow students, and welcome to today's show and tell. Today I want to show you that time is very, very important, with the help of my 3 friends here, of course. Okay, you can spend your time in many ways. For example, you can spend all your time sleeping. Or reading. And you can spend a lot of time watching. Or talking. And you can even spend your time coughing. Or worrying. Or hiding. Or listening. Or playing. But you can also use your time to help others, or use it to get away to a quiet place where you can think about what you're doing with your life, about God and why He made you, and what He can help you do with your life. Whatever you do with it, time is precious. You only have so much of it. It also flies. Once it's gone, you can't get it back, so use it wisely. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Stan. You out walking the dog this time of the night?
No, Ron, he's in the doghouse, like I'll be in a few hours.
Let me guess. You came to see if we had some flea powder.
No, some liniment for my bruises would be more like it.
So what's bugging you? Obviously you didn't come to borrow a cup of sugar.
Well, whoever said that waiting time is the hardest time knew what he was talking about.
You're keeping me waiting. Come on, why don't you sit down? Have a seat here. So,
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Stan.
something's bothering you?
Well, I'm waiting for Joan to come in on the bus.
Here.
I've got about 20 minutes, but I may have to stay here if Joan isn't in a better mood when she comes back home tonight.
I thought she went out of town to see her mother.
She did, but this time she didn't go to help her mom can peaches, let me tell you that.
Sitting alone, no one to phone. Inside there's pain that you're feeling. Walking outside, you try to avoid someone like you who needs healing. Isn't there a way to be friends? Isn't there a way to share our secrets? Isn't there a way to know we belong when we're together, together? We make demands or misunderstand. Soon we can't talk to each other. So listen with love, speaking with care. Don't hide from God or each other? Isn't there a way to be friends? Isn't there a way to share our secrets? Isn't there a way to know we belong when we're together, together? There will be times to stand by yourself, times when you've got a good reason, something to say, a yearning to pray. For everything there's a season. Isn't it time to be friends? Isn't it time to share our secrets? Isn't it time to know we belong when we're together, together, together?
So why did Joan leave?
You're not going to believe this, but it started with the dog. You see, she has this thing about letting the dog out to do its thing.
Seems to me that's better than cleaning the rug.
Well, it's not that simple, Ron. You see, she has this habit of, even before the dog wants to go out, to say, "You want to go outside, Mupsy? You want to go outside?" So here's this mutt racing around the kitchen, barking to go outside, terrorizing the whole house with no idea what for. And then this is the part that really gets me. She turns to me and says, "Stan, I think Mupsy wants out. Let him out, okay?"
So that's why Joan stormed out last Saturday afternoon while you were watching the semi-final. You were supposed to let out the dog.
I feel dumb about it now, but things have been building up ever since I got my promotion and had to spend all that extra time getting our branch office started. It didn't help any that Scott started having problems in school about that time, too.
Didn't Joan get in as chairman of the PTA as well recently?
Yeah, they've had a lot of hassles about school lunches lately. Anyways, here I am, waiting for Joan's bus to come in. What if she comes back, madder than ever? Maybe she's decided to take that position in the hospital she's been talking about. Or what if she's just coming to get her things to move out to her mother's for good?
But she must have phoned at least to ask you to pick her up at the bus.
Yeah, but she sounded kind of non-committal. You know, waiting's got to be the hardest thing. The house is quiet as a graveyard. Everything goes through your mind. All the things I've done to her, all the things she's done to me. Anyway, I saw your light was still on, so I came over to spoil your evening, too.
From earliest childhood, I've always been extremely fond of children. And to have another baby in the house was just nothing but excitement for me. I prayed for 4 or 5 years for my sister to be born.
We have 2 children, Mark, who is 13 and in grade 8, and Christy, who is 9 and in grade 4, and we're about to start a second family.
The 9-month waiting period seems to be broken down for us. That makes it a lot easier to cope with 9 months. First of all, you have the 3-month period that you go through and you're feeling so rotten, and you get through that and you think, well, things are going to be okay. And in the next 3 months, well, you know, life carries on pretty much as usual. And then sort of when you get to the end, then you think, well, now it's time to get ready for the baby. And you start collecting things, and it makes it a lot easier to get through the 9 months when you have these intermediate goals.
It makes sense that there should be a 9-month waiting period because that gives us time to prepare for the new arrival in every way. We can get things ready, and we can also prepare our life in the future, our schedules, do a little advanced planning, and generally get things ready for the changes that are going to come about.
I think time and time again we've talked about the miracle of birth and how you can't go through something like this and say it just happens by chance. That definitely God is a part of this. Very early in the pregnancy, when I was fearful about losing it, verses in Psalm 139 came back to me where it says, "You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit them together in my mother's womb." And it just reminded me and gave me comfort to know that God is involved even in those early stages where you wouldn't even identify it as a child, but God was there overlooking it all, and that I could trust him to bring his child into the world.
We have some fears. There's, of course, the immediate fear that somehow things will not work out and the child will not be healthy. And then, of course, I think beyond that, there's the apprehensions that all parents have about what the future holds for our children. And questions like whether these children are going to have a good world in which to live, one in which there's going to be peace and plenty, something we can't assume. My parents, at least, knew what it was like not to have enough when they were children, and that was quite a while ago. So it certainly could happen again.
I think through the ages, whenever somebody has had a child, there's always been some sort of world situation that makes it uneasy, and you wonder about the future. But I guess this is where you have to trust God, too.
There are some things we'll give up, like a good night's rest for a while, and the generally relaxed life that we've had with children that are a little older. But we've waited so long for this child that we feel it's going to be well worth any discomfort that we might experience for a few years.
Anyway, I saw your light was still on, so I came over to spoil your evening, too.
So you've been using the last few days to think. That's not all that bad, you know.
On the contrary, it's been agony. This thing blows up just before I have 3 days off work. I sit there and mull it over in my head. The one day, I blame myself for the whole thing, and I flip-flop all over the place with guilt. The next day, I blame Joan for everything, and I get so mad I think I'll need a distemper shot. Between anger and guilt, you end up feeling terribly frustrated, like you've blown everything. You're useless, a failure. If you'd ask me right now, I'd say I feel this small, this small. I should do what the kids do. Turn up the stereo, turn on the TV, drown everything out. The silence is deafening. I can't stand being alone with my own thoughts.
Have you ever read the Psalms in the Bible, Stan?
Well, if it's helpful, I'll listen, Ron.
David, the man who wrote most of the Psalms, must have felt at one point a lot like you feel like right now. He was king, but one day his whole personal world began crumbling around him. It began one evening when he saw a very, very beautiful neighbor lady. To make a long story short, he ended up having an affair with her. When he discovered that she was pregnant, after some scheming, he decided to get rid of her husband. So he gave orders to have him placed in the hottest part of the battle, where he most certainly would be killed, which happened. He was killed. A little while later, a local man of God came to him with a message from God about this whole matter. He was guilty of having stolen another man's wife and of being a killer. Following that, he had a period of time in which he was forced to think. Talk about silence being deafening. Can you imagine what went through his mind when he was alone? Wow. When it was all over, he wrote a very revealing song, Psalm 32. If I could, I'll read that to you. 32. What happens for those whose guilt has been forgiven? What joys when sins are covered over? What relief for those who have confessed their sins and God has cleared their record? There was a time when I wouldn't admit what a sinner I was, but my dishonesty made me miserable and filled my days with frustration. All day and all night, your hand was heavy on me. My strength evaporated like water on a sunny day, until I finally admitted my sins to you, and I stopped trying to hide them. I said to myself, I will confess them to the Lord. And you forgave me. All my guilt is gone. Now I say that every believer should confess his sins to God when he is aware of them. While there's time to be forgiven, judgment will not touch him if he does. And he talks to God. You are my hiding place from every storm of life. You even keep me from getting into trouble. You surround me with songs of victory.
I will instruct you, says the Lord, and guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch your progress.
What was that last part again, Ron?
You, says the psalmist, are my hiding place from every storm in life. You surround me with songs of victory. And then God responds, I will instruct you and guide you along the best pathway for your life.
Ron, I never thought that God had anything to do with my problems. I'll have to think about that.
Every living thing is equipped with various defense mechanisms that prolong its life. A forestry technician tells how some trees cope with calamities.
In the case of the Douglas fir tree, various insects, diseases, adverse climatic conditions, poor soil, or forest fires can threaten the health of the tree and shorten its life. These trees can be heavily defoliated, as by the western spruce budworm, and yet they have the capacity, in spite of this heavy defoliation, to refoliate the next year from buds. They may also be attacked by bark beetles, and yet a healthy tree, through a process of heavy pitch production, can cause the bark beetle to be unable to complete its development under the bark of the tree. The insect is completely gummed up, and the tunnels which it has begun to produce are filled with pitch. Healthy trees often show a great resistance to various diseases and are able to heal over areas where disease has begun. Douglas fir trees can resist drought conditions very well, and they often grow in some of the driest environments available. Also, large Douglas fir trees have very thick bark that may be several inches thick. And as a result, should a fire go through an area where these very large Douglas fir trees are growing, unless the fire is very severe, these trees will survive, whereas the surrounding smaller trees with much thinner bark are killed by this same fire. Consequently, when the Douglas fir sheds its seed, these seeds germinate and grow into trees which have no competition, because the Douglas fir tree was the only tree species that survived and is able to reforest in that area. It also blends in very well with the requirements of the Douglas fir tree, since this tree species does not reproduce in the shade of other trees. It requires a great deal of light and normally regenerates best under open conditions, as is created after a fire. These seeds germinate and grow into trees with little competition from other kinds of trees which were killed in the fire and whose seed are not likely to be present in the area.
When people face calamities, they have many creative ways of coping. But they have a privilege unique to mankind. They can call to their Creator for help and direction. It's a source of personal strength that is very special.
But I've got to run. I don't want to keep Joan waiting. Thanks a million, both of you. I needed this. I hope Joan and I can be back sometime to talk some more about this.
Anytime, even if you're only out to walk the dog.
Good night.
We'll see you. Well, what do you think?
I'm thinking about this whole business of waiting. You know, there's one kind of waiting that's not time wasted. That's time spent waiting on God.
I agree. Hey, let's go to sleep.
It's a good idea.
I ran away from Jesus. I'm going back to the Master to face the wrong I've done. How can there be such forgiving grace, restored and complete? I will fall at his feet with new courage to live in his way. The farmer waits for the harvest. The watchman waits for the dawn. I'll learn to wait on his guidance and trust him when it seems I can't go on. I'm going back to the Master to face the wrong I've done. How can there be such forgiving grace, restored and complete? I will fall at his feet with new courage to live in his way. I'm going back to the Master to face the wrong I've done. How can there be such forgiving grace, restored and complete? I will fall at his feet with new courage to live in his way.
Rooftops. All kinds of them. With all kinds of people living under them. Some of them busy people, others with free time. Some of them lonely, needing encouragement, wanting help. Ever feel that way? Well, there's something that can give you the lift you need. The Third Story magazine. It contains some of the items from the shows, articles about people in real-life situations, songs, plus additional features. Something for the whole family. And it's free, with no further obligation. You can have it by writing to The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. We'll be waiting to hear from you.